He would never open his mouth.
The tactic worked. Efforts to record Gambino came up empty.
He very rarely spoke at meetings, so it was hard to wiretap him. He was shrewd that way, and of course that was the successful way to be.
The boss also kept a low profile in his personal life. For all his wealth and power, he lived modestly and eluded the media.
Gambino was hard to get on your radar screen. He did not go bouncing at night. He didn't keep, a routine schedule. He was an elusive character, and I think very deliberately so. He was a low-profile character, and very successfully so, because his invisibility ultimately was his power.
Mr. Gambino, do you have any idea why you've been brought here?
His desire for anonymity aside, Gambino could not resist one public indulgence.
Here was a guy who went to so much trouble to live in the small, modest house. He went to so much trouble to not have the big, long, shiny black Cadillac. He kind of had this gray or dark, Oldsmobile. And the license plate was CG1, I think. But he had to allow himself that one little trapping of power, that one little vanity, the license plate with his initials. Back then, it showed you had a little juice.
By the mid-60s, Carlo was moving into his mid-60s, aging gracefully and looking more like a grandfather than a mafia godfather. He liked to give the appearance of a harmless, humble old immigrant.
I was at the Westchester Premier Theater, and I was introduced to Carlo Gambino. And he said, "Pleasure to meet you," very polite old gentleman. He spoke with a very heavy accent. He was wearing an overcoat, top hat. You would never know who he was. If it wasn't brought to your attention, you'd say, "Oh, a nice little old Italian man."
If you met Carlo Gambino, you would say, "This guy looks like Geppetto, the shoemaker with Pinocchio." His demeanor was so low-key and so grandfatherly. It was incredible he was what he was.
One sign of Carlo's high-powered business life was his strong addiction to coffee. When he went to these cafes, he drank from a bottomless cup.
I couldn't believe that anybody could drink that kind of black coffee and not get a jolt of adrenaline that would drive you over a cliff. He told me how many cups he used to drink a day. He used to drink 12 cups of black coffee a day.
The outwardly mild manner did not fool those who knew Carlo well, allies and enemies alike.
Carlo Gambino, his middle name was Treachery. He was the most treacherous mafia boss of them all. He would not hesitate to kill someone who would help him very much.
By the late 60s, the Gambino crime family had swelled to 25 crews with a total of about 800 men. Carlo Gambino had arguably become the most powerful man in all of New York.
You think that a man who never became an American citizen, who never got out of high school in Italy, could assemble this gigantic empire worth millions and millions and millions of dollars, a conglomeration of rackets, 30, 40, 50 rackets during his lifetime, and it took some brains.
The Don had earned the respect of those around him, and they were careful to show it. When in Little Italy, he always stopped by Ferrara's bakery for espressos and cannoli. There he would hold court, dispensing advice and favors.
Talk about patronizing somebody. I mean, the people would come in, they would fall all over themselves to kiss his ring. It would be like visiting the Pope.
In one of his rare nights on the town, Carlo took in a performance by Frank Sinatra at the Westchester Theater. Sinatra may have been the star, but it was Gambino who received the royal treatment.
Sinatra invited him and his entire group into the dressing room between the two shows Sinatra was putting on. The second show was going to start like at, say, 10 o'clock, for example, right? It started at 10:40 that night because Sinatra didn't want to chase him out of the room. I mean, it was that kind of respect. It was something.
Carlo's dedication to the crime family was matched by his devotion to his other family at home. To insulate his eldest son, Tommy, from his own violent world, Carlo sent him to Manhattan College, a rarity among the sons and daughters of mob bosses. Carlo was extremely close to his wife, Catherine, who never asked too many questions and, in her own way, proved quite an asset to the boss. Her warmth softened even the toughest wise guys who came to call on Gambino.
She would offer you an espresso coffee, and she would invariably ask you how your family was and how your charming children were. She completely disarmed you, you know. She melted you. You were going to go in there pretty tough, you know, try and make a deal or scare the boss. And by the time you left Catherine Gambino, you were a marshmallow.
Catherine helped Carlo keep the appearance of a decorous and respectable household. But mere appearance could not fool the feds.